Morning. Right, okay. Before we head off and go and walk Harry, it's a bit chillier at the moment, sweatshirts and scarves and things like that back on. It's the day, the anniversary, 80 years, and because I write as Glynis Peters as well, I write World War II orphan stories. They're fiction, completely out of this, but I weave in little facts about the Blitz, not in London, but around the UK, Great Britain, in cities and towns that were affected as well. So my very first one was The Secret Orphan, and that was set in Coventry, and that was inspired by a poem, The Coventry Rose, and the character in there is Rose. Now, when the book first cover reveal was done, even my granddaughter said, "Is that a photograph of the back of me?" No, it isn't, but it was very well done. So yeah, that's my little character Rose, and she's in war-torn Britain, blitzed cities, and that's the story of her and a young woman and Rose Sherborne. She and Eleanor Cardew, they met because of the war, and that was their struggles and stories. Now, when I signed my first contract with HarperCollins with this book, just as I signed, our grandson, our first grandson, not our first grandchild, but our first grandson, was born in Canada. He's Canadian born. And at that time, the poppies, it was late October, and I was a few days off of my 60th birthday. Gosh, that's 7 years ago. And a young poppy seller in RAF uniform stood there in Canada, in downtown Vancouver, and asked me to buy a poppy, which we did. So anyway, as I walked away, I thought of a story. Now, HarperCollins, a young man in America, he had, within HarperCollins out there, he had created the title, and I was approached by Charlotte Ledger, my publisher, and she asked if I would consider, I'd been writing Victorian, and if I would consider writing something in the 1940s, but I'd got free rein, I could write whatever. And just that gave me this little story. I'd just read the Coventry Rose poem, and that was it. I was off. So within a very few weeks, this was a Globe and Mail in Canada bestseller. I have Canadian heroes in my books in honour of my grandson and my son who live out there. So I had Globe and Mail bestseller, USA Today bestseller, Toronto Star bestseller. I was in the charts. It was incredible, and it was very, very soon after publication. And I had imposter syndrome so bad. I'd been a self-published author for 11 years before that. I retired off those books and concentrated on my HarperCollins contract. And so I wrote that one, did very well, thank you very much. So then I had another contract for The Orphan Thief. Now, the title didn't sit right with me at first. I wasn't sure whether it was The Orphan Thief or The Orphan Thief. Anyway, again, it's set in Coventry. The story opens at the point of this one, but they're not connected. And this book follows a young 16-year-old girl who runs a message for her mum, comes back home to nothing, where the family had been seated around the table eating their supper was a large crater, and the bombs had gone off. She ran back to her grandmother and the same had happened there. So this young 16-year-old girl was left with nothing, and thanks to a Canadian hero, she was able to get on her feet. And this is her struggle through Coventry on how to survive without papers, in fear, because she thought the Germans had invaded, and so she hid and found her feet and found how she could bring the community back and give back to the community. So that's that story. Now this story, this one also became a Globe and Mail bestseller, and it also won the HarperCollins Canada Shelf of Fame Award in 2021. And yeah, that shocked me to the core, but I'm very proud of that. So then we followed on with The Forgotten Orphan. Now those first two are standalone, and this is standalone. And this one is set in Southampton, and set within an orphanage, and a young orphan girl who ends up working within the orphanage because nobody really wanted her, because of her image and what have you. But in fact, she becomes a very valuable source during the war. And this one had a 2-page feature on Hello Canada. Hello, so I am so sorry, I'm being distracted now. This was in Hello Magazine Canada, 2-page spread. So this one is a hardback, which is lovely. And within this one, I was given the freedom to write several poems. I was a poet and short story writer before I actually started writing novels. So and a lot of these poems, because of the type of story in here, I drew from my feelings and emotions of helping the dying. When I was an NHS nurse, I drew on that feeling and portrayed that in that book. So that's that one. Then we followed through, and this is the oh dear, I've moved you, sorry. This is The Secret Orphan in Italian hardback, and it's also in Hungarian, but I haven't got a copy of that one. I don't know why, but I haven't. So then I wrote, I had an idea about, that's my bookmark, I had an idea to write about a young girl who goes off to become a Red Cross nurse, and she goes around the Blitz towns in Great Britain and Scotland, Great Britain, but she goes up to Scotland and back, and it's her story about meeting a Canadian doctor. In The Forgotten Orphan, he is a wartime photographer, Canadian hero there. No, in The Orphan Thief, he is the photographer. In here, he's the paratrooper. Yes, back to the Red Cross Orphans. Here's the Red Cross Orphans. And she goes off to become a nurse, and she meets a Canadian doctor. Now, I am actually writing book 4 now. This was book 1. Then we went on to book 2, The Orphan's Letters, and another Globe and Mail bestseller, and within that this is highlighting how letters home were important, how letters were communication when people were apart during the war. So the Red Cross nurse and the doctor, Kitty and Michael, they meet, they rescue, and she gets caught up in the Normandy rescues and her missions. So between them, they rescue an awful lot of people around Great Britain as well, by chance meetings and letters. And you have characters in there who are not what they seem to be, and they bring on surprises and shocks. So then we have the Orphan's Homecoming. Now this follows on from the Normandy landings, and this is quite the ending of the other one, The Orphan's Letters. Michael is severely injured, and it's his struggle, and then how they're both orphans, and their orphan story is thread all the way through, and then how they eventually find one another again and get back together again, because something drives them apart. So that's the Orphan's Homecoming. Now the Orphan's Homecoming is now going to be followed by the Orphan's Last Goodbye, and I'm writing that at the moment, and I'm knee deep in research, and it has to be on the editor's desk by June the 13th, so I can't do too much more talking today. Yes, so that's that. Now the Orphan's Secret Library, which came out in November, that is set in on the Essex-Suffolk border, Norfolk. Thorpe Abbots connect to the airbase of the Masters of the Air, but I knew nothing about that until after I'd already halfway through the book. So I had to alter a few things, but in this one has an American hero, and he is ground crew for the bloody 100th, the most incredible, look them up, the most incredible American support during World War II for us. They gave their lives, an awful lot gave their lives, as did the Canadians. The Canadians really did support us more. When my research came about, I was quite shocked at what I was learning and who was mentioned and who isn't mentioned. So anyway, yes, so this is a standalone book. This one is not connected to any of the others. It's a standalone, and it is about Alice. Yes, Alice, all the names. Alice's story, and of how her love of books becomes very important within the story, and even more important to the war effort, and where a telephone call couldn't be made. I mean, a reviewer did make a comment, but in the story, a telephone call, if made, may well have altered things. She had to take it in a note by hand, but you will read that in the story if you like that sort of story. So yeah, so that's me as Glynis Peters, and they're my books. Book 4 is out in November, and as Amber Raven, this book, The Wayward Witches, with Myrtle, who was my imaginary friend when I was young, and who I am actually able to speak about now and talk about now and feel confident in doing. Even my husband, I mean, he knew I was quirky and witchy and different things over the years, but it was never really a thing that was publicised, if you like. But as Amber Raven, I was given the freedom to write my witchy ancestral story about a set of twins whose ancestral line and bloodline was split because of evil content in the one bloodline and a curse on another. Their existence is threatened. So only one of the witches can solve the problem, and she does. But this is her story, Myrtle's story, as she goes through life, and when she reaches 60, everything changes. So yeah, so that's me, that's my books. Harry's waiting for a walk, which was the distraction earlier on. He's trying to push through. We have a baby gate in here because I've lost quite a few notes over a period of time when he was a puppy. He comes in, sleeps, trots off with a few scraps of paper, but the important notes I didn't need to lose. So you'll have to excuse me because I've got the hiccups a bit now, because I've been rushing through my words. Hope I haven't bored you. But yeah, I'll catch up with you again sometime soon. Take care of yourself. Bye.